Can we start from saying your names? Just say the names.
Adrian.
Shana.
Richard.
Tony.
Amos. Tass.
Tony.
Ainsley.
Ross.
Carl. Terry.
And Bob. And Kat.
Okay. The usual old spiel. Don't teach you anything and we don't tell you anything. Grasp that right from the start. When you realise what we're pointing to, you realise that nobody can teach you anything and nobody can tell you anything. Something you need to be recognised for yourself. And when I talk about for yourself, I'm not talking about the personal self, because that's the big problem. The idea that there is a personal self. It's non-duality we talk about. Non-duality meaning one without a second, not two. So to talk about a personal self and another self apart from that wouldn't be correct. Though we've got to use words to talk about it. And you realise it's non-dual, it's that one self that's appearing, expressing as everything. And this manifestation is all patterns, shapes and forms of that self. That's why they call it Nama Rupa. The basic screen, or that self, is the emptiness, the silence, the stillness and the emptiness, the space like awareness, as they say. That's all there is. And the Mahavakya they talk about, the great mantra, is I am that. Not I am me, or I am Bob, or I am this or that, but I am that's one self that's appearing and expressing as everything. That's the simplicity of it all. But we miss out on the simplicity because we've taken on this erroneous belief that we are this person. And there's no small self and bigger self, or higher self or lower self, just like there's only one power. They talk about God power, higher power, lower power, this power, thought power. But to describe it again in the scriptures, that one power is one intelligence is omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, omnipresence, total presence. Anyone not present right now? So you can't separate yourself from that totality, can you, when you look at it? Omnipotence. Only one power. Not thought power, higher power. So all your thoughts, feelings and emotions and activities are that one power. Omniscience. Another name for that is intelligence. So your intellects, that you believe the personal intellects are not that. It's the one intelligence, the same intelligence that's rolling the earth around the sun, causing the stars and the planets to do what they're doing, if they're doing, and tides and coming in and out, seasons coming and going. And you look at it closely and bring it back to what you are, and you realise it's that same intelligence that's making you take that breath you just took. It's expanding and contracting your heart. It's growing your hair and your fingernails, replacing cells in your body, digesting your food. Is this personal self or me doing any of that? You don't have to be a rose scholar to look into it when you start seeing it, no. And what is this person? Where does that come from? And have a look at that. Doesn't it come from an ancient language, Latin, I think, Greek or something like that? Persona, the mask. That's what it means, the mask. And so when you say you're a person, you're coming from that masked, believing, masked entity you've taken on the belief that they are. And the mask which is obscuring that one essence is thoughts. Shakespeare told us that a couple of 100 years ago, and he says nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. The Nisargadatta tells us the same thing. Nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. Break that word imagination down to image in. There's a mirror behind you, have a look at it. What's it full of? Nobody bothers to have a look, you're not much interested, are you? Nobody. It's full of reflections or images. Now you can't say those images are not there. They're there, but go and try and grab an image out of the mirror. You can't, because you can't say they aren't there, because you can see them, but you can't say they are there. You try and grab hold of one. And that's a poor analogy, because the mirror needs something outside itself to reflect in it. But what we're talking about, there's nothing outside of that one essence, that pure screen in which everything's appearing. The mirror is like a screen, if you use the analogy, in which images appear in it. And all sorts of images can appear in it, play around and disappear. Something moves out of it and something else will move in. But the image, the mirror is not contaminated or corrupted by any of the images that appear in it. That innate intelligence that you are and I am and everything else is, has never been corrupted or contaminated by any of the thoughts, feelings, emotions that take place in it. But because of the belief they do, people suicide, they want this and do that and do all sorts of things and suffer accordingly because they take notice of this conceptual image they've got about themselves, which we call the self-centre, the reference point, or the ego. Now you hear a lot about the ego. People tell you, and even in the scriptures they tell you, you've got to be rid of this thing called ego because it's the cause of all your problems. And they say you've got to jump on it, kill it, put it under a carpet, do it, whatever you can to get rid of it. But we say here, and a lot of the real fair income scriptures will tell you the same thing, that the ego is a fiction. It doesn't exist. It doesn't even exist. We've taken a belief in it and we're still relating to it. 99.9% of the world out there are coming from that ego viewpoint, the reference point, the self-centre. Because though it is that in most of the great traditions start from that belief, they've been corrupted along the way by people putting their own takes on them and different thoughts, ideas and images on them, instead of leaving it as simply, in its simplicity. And they tell you that basically. In Hebrews tell you, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God, there is one God. There is no other." The Muslims tell you, there is no God but God. Allah is his name. The same essence they put a label on. And we put a label on it, Christ, Buddha, or whatever other labels we put on it, and miss out on what we're actually pointing to. And the people that came across this message, people who've come about it over the many years and talked about it, like Moses and others, so-called, and people, what have the people done? They've set up the messenger and worshipped the messenger, think the messenger's going to do something for them, and missed out on the message. And the message can only be attained by that essence that you believe yourself you are. It can only be attained because it needs to be recognised or recognised. You're already that, but you need to recognise it. When it seemingly gets obscured by thoughts, feelings and emotions, all these other things, as much as possible, relax and recognise what you've had insights about throughout your life. You've all had insights about that reality that you are. When people say, well, that fell into place without that much effort, or I was in the zone, or all sorts of things, when things fell into place naturally and effortlessly. That's what needs to be recognised. Because the Buddha's called it cognising emptiness. Not when you hear that, you think, oh, I'm cognising emptiness. They're not talking about you cognising emptiness, they're talking about the emptiness that's cognising you and everything in it. Because he made the statement after that emptiness is form. Putting out that cognising emptiness, that another word for cognising is knowing, or intelligence, or awareing. That cognising emptiness, he made the statement that emptiness is form. Pointing out exactly there and then what we're trying to point out here, that It's the emptiness that's forming you, me, and everything else in this manifestation. There is no entity there with any self-nature. That's another thing the Buddha's saying. There is nothing in this manifestation with any self-nature. And there is no static point anywhere. So you made the statement, emptiness is form, and the form can be nothing other than the emptiness. So what does that mean? Aren't you and I forms? Aren't we? We're forms, but are you all recognised that you are that emptiness that's forming you? When they say, be still and know that I am God, they tell you that in the Bible. Take that label off, be still and know that you are the stillness, you are the emptiness. And they say they call it in Hinduism Brahman, I am the Brahman. Brahman is silence and stillness. Put the labels on and we got lost in the labels or the words. Now have a look at the word. If you're lost in the word, where did that come about? How many words were you born with? Go back and see how many words you were. What did you do for the first couple of years of your life? Did you have any words? No, you didn't. So you must recognise that every word I've ever spoken or ever likely to speak has been learnt. Picked up along the way. We were taught. Word CAT is cat, this is so-and-so, that's something. This is yes, this is no, this is words, all labels. And you've got a dictionary full of words. So you're probably still picking up words along the way. And I'm forgetting a lot of them, and probably you are too. We forget a lot of the words with that. And the words change over the years, and old dialects into different new meanings. But we've taken on this conceptual image. Nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. Images, what we're calling mental images and verbal images. Images from sound and images from silent thought, which is most of it. They're all images. So the word is not the thing. It's a label we put on the thing. And have a look at that. Take the word water. Can you drink the word? Can you swim in it? Can you drown in it? Can you wash in it? You can't. It's broken down to H2O. It's a couple of gases coming together, but you can't. With the word itself, with the label, you can't do anything. Does the word fire burn your mouth when you cook it? You can't cook with it. You can't heat yourself with it. Other things you can't do. And the body temperature is a word. So the word's not the real. And that's what we are in bondage to. The bondage of self, not the real self, but a personal self. We've taken on the word person, persona, and I've got this personal self. It's me, Bob, the Australian. I am the person. I'm not you, I'm not da-da-da-da. And I'm a good fella, or I'm not so good. We're adding all these concepts onto that personal belief. And we've got a conceptual image based on words. Those words are believed in and it seems real. But realise it is a dead image. The conceptual image you've got about yourself right now, if you've got one and hanging on to one, is a dead image. It's not a fresh and new image, it's based on past events and experiences. So you can see why we're never in tune with life. Never can keep up with life. Because life has left that dead image behind. Take a bucket of water out of the river, put it on the bank, what happens to it? Leave it there, it becomes stagnant because it's encased in the bucket. But the river's flowing along naturally and effortlessly. So it reaches the ocean where it merges back into the ocean again where it came from in the first place. Evaporated by the sun, it rises and forms a cloud which breaks down into water. But nothing's changed. It's changed, but constantly changing, but its reality, its one essence hasn't changed. So we got this dead image based on past events and experiences. And that's the cause of all our psychological suffering. The word is not the real. And see, realise that you didn't have any words. When did you begin? You'll say, I was born. Put that word on, I was born. But can you remember your birth? You certainly can't, because you didn't have that word to put the label on it, to remind you. And in the next couple of years of your life, did you have any words? But you were functioning quite well without it. You needed your parents at that stage to give you a hand, but you knew when to call on your parents. You started crying or laughing or giggling or grinning or whatever. When you were hungry, when you were tired, whatever. But you didn't have any words. And about 2.5, somewhere about that age, in different patterns, you know, it's not one set static pattern where we're all going to learn the word at a certain time. That's why we're not all the same. We're all fresh and new, unique expressions of that intelligence energy. And there's no two patterns the same. So, the capacity of reasoning developed in us about 2.5 as we were growing. You weren't stagnant, you weren't static, you were growing from the time, like the 9 months in the womb, starting from a sperm and the ovum, 2 cells coming together. And didn't it grow and continue to expand and grow, and you formed the body? And that which you are today is still that same intelligent energy. It's changed, constantly changing. It's transient. The pattern is changing constantly. It's transient. That's what they tell you again in the scriptures. This manifestation is Maya. Another word for Maya is illusion. Illusion, dreamlike, it's illusion. A phenomenal manifestation. Look up your dictionary, look up the definition of phenomena. The definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. So the illusion is Maya, is that which appears to be. All this around you, including everything you see, everything you do, is Maya. It's illusion, a dream. You go to night and sleep at night and you dream a dream at night, and in that dream you've formed a world, you've formed a city or a country or wherever you're living in. You're formed doing all sorts of activities. You're in a car, you can be all sorts of things, or on a plane or doing all sorts of things. When you wake up, what happens to that dream? It disappears. It was an illusion. It was Maya. And if it was very old, you might be able to recall parts of it, but you won't recall it for very long. You can't tell me what you dreamed of 6 months ago now, and go into everything that happened with it. Or even last night, probably. It's probably disappearing. And when you wake up, what do you wake up to? You realise that no words came out of your mouth in that dream. No activities were going on. You were lying and didn't move off the bed. All taking place in that dream. But you woke up to this dream. And we don't realise that this is a dream. We think that one's real. But if you dream that night, carried on each night from where it left off, just the same as this seemingly carries on, could you tell the difference between the two? The dream was pretty real while you were in it. Seemed very real. But could you tell the difference between this? And that's what we don't realise. This is a living dream. And it's just like anything, all sorts of things can happen in it, and they do happen apparently. But that believed in entity takes it on board, this is happening to me. This conceptual me. And if it doesn't fit the image, I don't like it. And I'm fearful of it. And I'm anxious about it. And I'll be distressed over it. I'll be unhappy, I'll be sad, I'll be guilty, I'll be jealous, I'll be envy over the dream. Wei Wu Wei said, why are you unhappy? Because everything you say, everything you think, and everything you do is for yourself. And he says there isn't one. And that's what we say here. There isn't self. There isn't a personal self. There is the one self, if they like to call it. It's self-aware. It's self-shining. It's self-knowing. It's self-seeing. It's self-hearing. It's self-tasting. It's self-expressing as this body runs, not the personal one that we've taken on, which is a conceptual image based on thought, a structural image based on thoughts. The egoic image. We call it myself. You say my body, my mind, but are you the body? You say, my coat, my car, my house. You know you're not the coat, the car or the house. Maybe if you look at it, you'll see you're not the body either, if it's my body. And my mind, again, we think my mind gets me into all sorts of trouble. My coat, my car, my mind, the same thing. When it's taken on to be that personal self, of course it gets into trouble. Because you're relating to an egoic entity which is a false one. It doesn't exist. And see, all your problems are problems of relationship. Me and the other. You've got that personal self, you've separated yourself from the universal into me and the other. Now, how does this me come about? Well, as I say, the capacity of reasoning comes about and you learn to reason, which is a useful capacity. It's very useful in this manifestation. But because it's functioning, when we move it to be me as a dualistic functioning, it can be self-destructive. Because look at dualism. See where it functions. Good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, day, night, winter, summer. Always vibrating. Instead of being the one that's vibrating into the... It's the one vibrating as everything, but we put the two ends on it, the two words. Good, bad, pleasant, painful, past, future, day, night. All label, all divisions, all dividing the indivisible. That is indivisible. It's only the one essence appearing as everything. So it needs to be looked at, questioned, investigated. That's all we can do here. You can look and see for yourself. Because I'm a mental image, just the same as you are. Can one image, any image in that mirror tell the other image what to do? It can't. So all I can do is, all that happens is the words come out, and something in that image there might resonate with them. Resonation is a vibrating, subtle vibration of energy. And that resonation, there's sort of a sense of awakening coming in. Well, follow this through. No, maybe I'm not what I've believed myself to be. And it might start the search. And it has. Because you wouldn't be here listening to this shit if it wasn't. You'd be back to your mantras and your meditations and everything else and staying with them. And something moves you to look a little bit further. Well, take that essence and you see, you go back over your life and you've seen been guided into a lot of things. It might come in the guise of a so-called human pattern or some other pattern. You'll see a bird or a tree or something like that might give you that resonation, or the flow of a river or a beautiful sunset. There's all sorts of things in this manifestation. Continue to open you up, but that's what needs to be done. If you come here to listen to this, put it into activity. If you don't like it, don't bother coming back. And go. But put it into activity and see if it works for you. Get taste of it. And keep getting taste of it, and you'll recognise it'll grow. It grows of itself. It'll lead you to wherever you go. It'll take you whatever is necessary. It might be something other than this. Who knows? But I don't know of anything other than this. And I don't know anybody that's arrived at this state that does know of anything other than this, that non-duality. Yeah, that's why the basis of all the scriptures are all about it. One without a second. Pointing out it's only this one. The non-dual. Well, how's it happened? Well, we got this conceptual image we've picked up. Parents told us you're little Johnny, and you realise that instead of investigating and see whether you're little Johnny, yeah, I am little Johnny. And I am this human being. We got this idea we are human beings. We call the God, if you believe it, God is the supreme being. Us humans are sinners. We're unhappy, we're bad people. That's what the ones that have corrupted the great tradition have put those thoughts into us, and we got us. Instead of getting us out of dualism, they're keeping us in it.
You call God Supreme Being?
Huh?
You call yourself human being? You call
Yeah. Well, take those labels off. The words, human. Take it off. What are you without the word human? Have you stopped being? You haven't. That's the label, but you see, you don't need the label there because you're not unaware right now. You don't have to say I'm aware or I'm conscious. And look for consciousness or awareness. And recognising if you're not unaware, you must be its opposite, which is awareness. You know, you don't have to say I'm aware. You are. Recognise you are that consciousness or awareness. So take the human off it, take the label supreme off it as God. Take the label supreme and take it off the God, and take the label human off the being. And it's one being, isn't it? Without the label. So you're back to your non-dual essence. One being, everything. You and I are that being. We are not separate and apart. They might appear in pattern, shape and form as that, and act as that. And that's how it'll go. That's how the activity will go on. But know the truth about it. No matter what activity goes on, you've never been separate from it. And a lot of the rubbish and guilt and shame and thing will fall away from that, which comes about because of that labelling. And see how that works. Something comes up and I like it. How do you know you like it? Because you've experienced before. You've experienced this, whatever it was before. And it was a good experience. And we want to keep the good experiences, the happy experiences, the loving, the joyful experience. We don't want them to go. Not realising that it's a vibrating energy, it's Maya. No matter how much you love it, no matter how much you want to keep in there, no matter how much you want to hang on to them, it's going to change. Because we pointed out that manifestation is transient, it's constantly changing. And you haven't got the same body you walked into this room with. It might appear to be the same, right? But it's not. There are millions of cells dying in it right now and being replaced. Subtle changes, transients. It's not, and you know that because it's not the same your body had 20 years ago, is it? You see those changes are going about all the time. And time is the thing I say as a label, but that's not it either. Time is a mental concept also. All these words and labels we put on these be looked at and see that the word is not the real, but we've got to give us some sort of a understanding of them, we've got to utilise words. So if something comes up and I like it, I know because I've experienced before, not realising it's transient, it's going to change. No matter how much you love them, or how much you want to keep them there, it's still going to change. And we don't want things to change. We want to be happy constantly all the time, not realising that the way this manifestation patterns in vibration, constantly and ever changing. Like the ocean is ever changing, yet it's never changing. It's still always the ocean, no matter whether there's waves on it, whether it's smooth, whether it's hard in it, whatever. It's an analogy or word they put on it, ever changing but never changing. So we won't want this good to change, not realise it's going to change. So what do? Believing we have some power, we try to keep it there and resist it. And that word resistance is conflict. Another word for resistance is conflict. Trying to keep it there. Another word for conflict which makes you uneasy, unhappy, sad and all the rest of it, guilty, jealous, is uneasiness or disease. So isn't that what our lives are? Well, we're functioning from a life of resistance, conflict and disease. The same when something comes up that you don't like. The opposite comes up, I don't like this one, not realising it's going to happen this way. Again, instead of leaving it as it is to change of itself, we resist it. in conflict and disease again. And isn't that all your psychological suffering? Resistance, conflict and disease, your unhappiness, your anxiousness, your fear, your guilt, your shame, your remorse, jealousy, your envy, all these things, psychological suffering, are based on that resistance. And you're good, you're pleasant, and the other side of it. But could you tell one from the other if it didn't vibrate in the opposite? So you think you're going to have one without the other? And look at life and see if it's one without the other. Take a stick. A stick got two ends to it? Yes. It's not a one-ended stick. It's not going to be good all the fat and thick at one end and thin at the other all the time. Take a coin. It's got two sides to it. Take everything. It's got two sides. So you think you're going to have one without the other? But when you blend them, that stick is the one stick. The coin is the one coin. And all this manifestation and everything in it is the one essence, appearing, patterning, and expressing as everything. And you are that. They call it Satchitananda in Hinduism. Satchitananda Nama Rupa are the five factors: existence, consciousness, bliss. They call it bliss, but loving to be is another term to use for it. People think there's such a thing called bliss and look for it continuing. And Nama Rupa, the other two factors, name and form. Existence is being, another word for it. Consciousness is awareing. Bliss or happiness or contentment or subtle joyousness. And the Nama Rupa, the name and form. The name and form are the body, mind. Name and form. And they tell you clearly that name and form are Maya, they're illusion. So you're going to continue to function from the personal self. There is no person, so there can be no personal self. Realising that, what are you going to do? If you're functioning at all, you must be related, it must be coming from that intelligence. It must be that natural self, one self appearing. So you're going to lock into the patterns and say, oh, I shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. Or you're going to leave that living go on. Realise it's breathing you right now. Did you take that breath you just took? Did you expand that heart that's beating right now and contract it? What's your next thought going to be? Did you blink your eyes? Is your food being digested that you had this morning? Have a look at these things and see what part thinking plays in it. And what part is necessary for thinking to come in, it'll come in and be utilised. But it won't be using you by telling you, you are that thought, you are that no good entity. So thought's not the enemy, it can be very useful. And when it's no longer the enemy, it's not going to be as so overwhelming as it is. It can be utilised and you can use it like this room was an idea in somebody's mind. Everything that's been invented was an idea in somebody's mind. People say, well, I did that. But they couldn't lift a finger, turned a screw or drawn a line or manifested anything without that life essence functioning through the body. So it's the life essence that's using that pattern to express through. Utilising any things that need to be invented or created or thought about in any sums, it's doing it. Just like the same essence that's in the seed in the tree, put it in the ground, put a bit of water, a bit of heat, a bit of warmth, a bit of sunlight under the earth around it, it'll sprout. It's like the sperm and ovum come together. The intelligence energy in that will form this pattern. The life naturally expresses through everything, and you are the life. Not the things that appear in it. That's what Christ tells you. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. He wasn't talking about himself, which people to give him some higher status or something to worship with. Think he did it. He's using that I the same as the Sarkadata uses it. I am as the sense of presence that expresses through the mind as the thought. What's your basic thought, your primary thought? I am. broken down to that primary sound, Om, if you like. Om is translated as I am. And that's what we point to. And I should look at that, see all these thoughts, the way it functions. Now have a look. As I say, you're seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. Well, when you woke up this morning, did you say, I've got to start seeing now? You didn't. If you were this personal self, you've got to crank yourself up and say, I've got to start seeing. But you didn't need to say, I've got to start seeing. The seeing was there immediately. You mightn't realise it, you might think it's different, but it's the same seeing you had right now as you had when you opened your eyes this morning. It's the same seeing you had last week, last year, as far back as you remember. Before you had any words, and that seeing was there. And the same with the hearing. The hearing happened this morning. And if somebody talked it loudly in deep sleep, the hearing would have been there. In a way. But it's the same hearing and the same seeing. You think it's different. But it's not. It's the same thing with different thoughts, feelings, ideas and concepts have appeared in it. The same hearing with different sounds and words and things have appeared in. It's the same seeing and hearing you've always had. But the content of it has changed. And the content is the Maya. The pattern, shapes and forms have changed. They're not the reality. And the words around them, that we label them, have changed. Different words you put on different things. So you think of that and have a look at that saying. Tell me this. You think this personal entity is saying, you say, I see. But can you, does the thought I see, no, does the I tell you I see? You're seeing through the eye, but does the I say I see? It doesn't. The seeing happens through the eye and the concept, the thought comes up, I see. The same with the hearing. Does your ear tell you I hear? The hearing's happening through the ear, but it's not saying listen to this or listen to that, just like the eye's not saying look at this and look at that. But it's happening through the ear, and the thought comes up, I hear. And then as soon as we put that I see, I hear, it's me, Bob. The conceptual image is taken on the belief that it has the capacity of seeing and hearing. But can that thought I see actually see? And investigate that and have a look. Close your eyes and look around the room and see what you can see with a thought. What can you see with the eyes closed? You can't see anything at all. You can put imaginary conceptual images in your mind, but what you're actually seeing in the room you can't see with the eyes closed. Those eyelids have shut it off. And you can see the darkness behind the eyelids, which you'll see. But the eye itself can't tell you, look at this. It's happening through the eye. The same with the ears. Block your ears off and see what you can hear. What sounds you can hear with the ears blocked off? You can't. The ear can't tell you I hear. I can't tell you to see, I see, the ear can't tell you I hear. So, it's all, the seeing is happening, the hearing is happening, it's all happening naturally and effortlessly. The thought I see, can't see. So this thought up entity, which is all related to me, Bob, can't do anything at all, the personal entity, the egoic entity, can't see it, can't hear it, can't be aware, it can't, the speaking coming about, is the personal entity doing it? Could you speak without that life essence? Could you feel without it? Could you taste? Could you touch? Could you smell? You can't. So it's that life essence that's doing the lot. I am that life. The same as Christ said. I am that sense of presence. I am that awareness. These things are appearing on it. They are not what I am. That's not the person. I haven't got a conceptual image around that I. There's no conceptual image you can put around it. It's just as it is in itself. And look at that statement, just as it is. There's not a label you put on it. So that is just another part of the verb to be, like I am. So, it isness means unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. And what can change it from isness? What can alter it? A thought. What can modify it? A thought or a feeling or a moment. What can correct it? A thought. And Bankei told you that a couple hundred years ago. See, these things are not new. They're there, and you look in the scriptures. You might have read them a million times and not even look at what they're saying. He called it the unborn Buddha mind. Again, going back to that, in pure intelligence energy, the essence which is unborn. The awareness or the knowing that you are, without those labels, is unborn. That wasn't born. What was born was the thought I am at about 2.5. He says, everything is perfectly resolved in the unborn. He called it the Buddha mind, another label he put on it was not necessary, but the unborn mind. Everything was perfectly resolved in that. And have a look out there in nature and see, isn't nature resolving itself perfectly? Not in the way you and I might think it should be. There's tsunamis, there's volcanoes exploded, imploding, there's floods coming, there's droughts, there's all the rest. They're all appearing in nature, but what's nature doing about it? Climate changes and things like that. We as puny humans are trying to change it, and that wouldn't come about in our minds if there wasn't something that could be done about it, I guess, which would make aiming towards that. Why exchange the unborn for thought? And isn't that what we do? Instead of leaving it as it is, we think we're going to alter it, modify it, correct it. Now, if a thought comes up spontaneously, which it might do, it's not prior before the entity's taken hold of it, and there are lots of spontaneous thoughts, feelings and emotions. And you'll see that when you're living or abiding as that. Things will come up unexpected and uncalled for in a lot of cases. Sometimes they might be mulled over in the mind a bit, but come up spontaneously, but that might be what is necessary also. But all that livingness is done not by the personal self. It's all done by that life, energy that you are, just the same as out there. When a wind moves the tree, can you see the wind? Will you ever see the wind? No, you can only see expressions of it. And what's going on in the head and all the rest of it, if you understand what they're coming from, they're only expressions of that pure intelligence energy that you are. That's what we point out and ask you to look at it, and I'll ramble along long enough. So you can get into it, have a go. Want to add to it?
You've done a great job. I mean, he ran through everything. And 45 minutes, very good. Yeah, he's getting better and better, speaking more and more. This is what everybody wants. But just to wrap it up, it's really what he's pointing out. There is nobody in there who does anything. We think there is an entity or separate self, that I am the self, that is doing everything. But all that separate self is doing is taking credit, is saying, I'm breathing. Is it really anybody there who is doing the breathing? Of course not. Or, I'm digesting my food. No, nobody does it. There isn't anyone who would be doing it. They're automatic functions. Just like thinking is automatic functions, the hearing, we hear the sounds, they're automatic functions. And hearing the thoughts are, Bob often say, like a subtle sound. They also appear just like sounds. They're very subtle. So, and nothing really happens by that entity. The entity only takes credit, and not even that, because taking credit is actually a piece of software. It's an application that is translating normal spontaneous functioning into I do it, I'm seeing, I'm hearing. Really, the space of seeing is totally available. It's just, it doesn't even have beginning or an end. I can't even say that the seeing starts from my face, because I can't really have the face if I'm not thinking. So it is all spontaneous functioning, and a piece of software that is coming with the idea that I do it. I take decisions, I make choices, I do thinking, I choose thoughts. Bob often says that you can't choose thoughts if you think you can. Why would you ever choose unhappy thoughts? You obviously wouldn't be that stupid to choose depressed thoughts or angry thoughts. So it means you're not doing it. It's automatic functioning, like you don't choose the sounds that are coming from the street. So it is all appearing. Now the piece of software or the application running in the computer there translates everything. No, I'm doing it. I'm doing the seeing. I'm doing the thinking. I'm doing the getting up, walking, whatever. It's not true. It's very, very easy to see in a basic functioning like heartbeat. That nobody does it. Nobody claims it. Like Bob says, wind doesn't claim that it moves the trees. It is part of the functioning of the world, part of the dance. Like he says, one essence, one emptiness appears as forms. Dances appears as forms. When it vibrates to certain frequency, we have sounds. It vibrates to different frequency, we have light. But vibrates as the subatomic particles creates the matter. So that emptiness shows up as the diversity of forms. And now that very emptiness gave itself a vehicle to witness the dance. Without the eyes, there is no seeing. Without the ears, there is no hearing. So part of the appearance is that body-mind through which the emptiness experiences itself as another, as the other. Because it is totality, there is no separation. The only way to experience separation is to create a dream in which you forget to be a totality, now you are an entity. So the waking up from the dream is waking up from the entity, which basically means the entity never wakes up. It cannot wake up. If I believe myself to be someone inside or whatever, it can't wake up, because this one is the very veil that prevents the consciousness to rest in itself, the screen to go back to itself. So giving up the dream of waking up would be probably a reasonable thing to do. The waking dream, the one who thinks that it needs to wake up, is the very obscuration, is the bundle of thoughts that take credit for seeing, hearing, for whatever. So now the way to return to that basic screen is to actually see the mental activity for what it is. If I say, oh, I made such a dreadful mistake, I answered to something that I shouldn't have done, this is a mental activity. There is no I making mistakes or choices. That was just a spontaneous action, like sound. And now the credit taking says that I did it, I feel guilt, I feel shame. That's the story. Recognizing the story as pure mental activity, pure noise, commentary, means that I'm recognizing it already from the point of disassociation from the story. I'm watching the movie, I'm watching the commentary, I'm watching the story. So who is watching? Now I'm looking back, there's nobody watching. Nobody is knowing the content, and yet the content is known, is undeniably known. So there is a knowing without the entity, personal entity, doing it. Nobody does blow the wind, and yet it blows. Nobody grows the grass, and the grass is growing. Nobody does the knowing, and yet things are known. So coming out, being to start with, recognizing the personal entity as a mental activity. As Bob says, conceptual image is built from thoughts from early childhood. What I am, who I am, what capacities do I have, dreams, past, future, they're all thoughts, they're all memories. So to recognize that conceptual image is made of thoughts is an imaginary entity, completely imaginary. And then seeing that imagination as a content of consciousness. Now I'm the consciousness, witnessing the form. I'm the emptiness, watching the content. And this, like Bob says, keep tasting it, keep returning to that Sat Chitananda, pure awareness of presence, pure blissful awareness of being. And from that point, whatever the content is just a movie on the screen. It doesn't really touch me. On the beginning, it may be just a glimpse, just a moment of, Bob was saying in the spiel, moment of recognition when everything is naturally happening, falling in a place. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong anymore. Everyone has a lot of moments throughout the day when nothing is wrong. Nothing needs changing. There is no one who is inferior, insecure, afraid, or who wanted any different. Recognizing those moments, this is the natural state. The more of the recognition of the moment of being in natural state. And those are also moments of happiness, moment of uncaused joy. This is when we don't want to change anything. Nisargadatta was saying that's the ultimate state. Nothing is wrong. He can't say it's bliss. He can't say it's ecstasy. Only in the opposite. Nothing's wrong. Nothing needs fixing, changing, altering, modifying, or correcting. As it is, that's what it is. So we all know that state. The problem is when we start imagining that the state of enlightenment is some sort of a state that we have to achieve in future, and in that state there will be a lot of pleasure and a lot of bliss. If that state, that imaginary state, is to be achieved, it means it's not here now. It means it's not worth it. If it has beginning and an end, it's just a passing phenomena. So what we are really looking for, we are looking for something that never changes, is always there, and it has been there throughout the whole life. What was there when we were 2-year-old, 5-year-old? What was there when we were yesterday, a week ago? Or what is never going to change, even though the body changes, the conceptual image change, the emotions, feelings, even the feelings about myself. Today I may feel great, oh yeah, I'm not too bad. Tomorrow, oh gosh, somebody abused me, I'm horrible, I want to die. Even this is passing phenomena. So what is there underlying that changing passing phenomena that is always there, that never changes? So that what never changes is the fact that I am, the pure knowing of existence. So we are not after, of course we're going to be same as animals, chasing pleasures and avoiding pain. It doesn't mean that now, the cat will eat dog food or something. It's natural state is part of the functioning that the body will look after itself. The body will pick whatever is conditioned to pick, will still stay with its favorite music or favorite food. But this chasing state, passing, changing state in which there is a pleasure is not worth it. It's not worth of the attention because it's just an experience. What is beyond all the experiences, that's the awareness of presence, that undeniable non-conceptual awareness, the knowingness that doesn't come from the head, that doesn't come from the belief that I am. It is something that is prior to every thought. And prior not in the sense of time, that it appeared before it, but it may even be viewed this way. But something that is a screen for all the thoughts. And that one is for the mind completely undetectable. The mind can never get a grasp of it, because the nature of mind is to vibrate into forms, good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, objects that have certain qualities. And the screen before the mind doesn't have qualities. For the mind, the only glimpse of it would be a void or nothing or death. For the mind is like death. So the mind trying to grasp the idea of non-conceptual awareness, of awareness beyond concepts and thoughts, is hopeless. It is never ever going to happen. So it is really about relaxing out of the thinking into that state of plain awareness of being. And the thinking will appear. The thinking will keep vibrating. And let it be. Let it vibrate. Let it do whatever it does. As often as you can, just relax back to that, yeah, I am. Without knowing intellectually, but just that heartfelt sensation, or not even sensation, it's pre-sensory knowing, like a gut feeling, of course I am. Try not to be. Try and stop being. It's impossible. That is something that it never changes. If you are, you are. You can't stop it. So landing back in that natural state of awareness of being and viewing everything as a passing phenomena on the screen. That's the first glimpses. And as Bob says, like a little seed, it will sprout. It will grow by itself. It will, because there is a natural longing for that relaxation from homecoming, coming back to the heart of the matter, to the essence, waking up from the dream of being limited, of being individual. So if that pre-sensory, home, basic, intimate awareness of presence is cultivated in a way, if it is brought forth, naturally the joy and the natural joy, the relaxation and the peace of it will, if that's highlighted, it will grow, it will sprout, it will stabilize. And it doesn't mean that the thoughts, that there will be a time, for Bob it was over 40 years of stabilizing in this natural state. It doesn't mean the thoughts will not come and express in their fullness for a moment. It doesn't mean that the thought of irritability or pain will not express itself in its fullness, but it doesn't hang on. The thought will come just like a cloud on the sky and it will pass on. And it didn't happen to anyone. There isn't an entity saying, oh, I had a thought or I had irritability. No, it's just a wave of another different frequency passing through the screen. So many people wait for the state when there are no thoughts anymore. It's not going to happen unless you get a brain damage. But it's not necessary to suppress the thoughts or to ignore the thoughts or to make yourself believe that you don't have thoughts or belief. It's no necessity for it. It's about recognizing what is always there. And yeah, just resonating with that recognition, really. So I'm sure that every one of you heard at least a couple of things that Bob said that were really strongly resonating, because the spiel is so packed with these beautiful pointers. So if there is anything that you would like to share or ask questions, because if you ask him, he will go deeper with that one pointer. If there's just one thing that you remembered from the spiel, or a couple of things that somewhere moved you inside, ask him. He will bring it deeper. He will anchor it. So it will be like a lighthouse in the darkness. You will be coming back to it, coming out of the story, back to that recognition. That's how precious that bag of pointer that he presents is. And every single sentence of the spiel, if you only heard one thing, can take you all the way home that you never left, all the way back from the story of me to the awareness of presence. So please just highlight what you heard, because if you highlight that one thing, somebody else will hear it more. If you heard one thing, persona, the mask, and you say it, and then suddenly, oh, I missed that one, somebody else will hear it. And this is all about coming back to that resonance of the truth, because pointer is not the truth, pointer is just words. You can trash them all out. Like Bob was saying often about the mirror analogy. It needs something outside. It's not a good analogy, but it's very, very good to actually bring out the form back to the emptiness. How the reflection is made of the mirror. You can't grab it. It doesn't have any substance. And this is the 3D or 4D mirror. And this is all reflections. So please just come up with even one thing that you could give away to the others in the group. Or you could just ask to get it really back to the core, deepen up. Or we can just sit in silence.
There was one thing that Bob mentioned in that 1998 Amsterdam interview, that he was in a meditative state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that interesting. So, are you still in that meditative state of mind?
Are you in meditative state of mind, Bob? Like you were talking
What's a
20 years
meditative
ago.
state of mind?
Well, that's how you described your state of mind to that Amsterdam interviewer.
I don't think I use those terms.
Yeah.
You know?
And
That's
I
what,
thought that sounds pretty good. And that was your, you don't meditate or do things like that, but if you're in that state of mind.
well, there's no meditator, nothing to meditate on.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what they call an undistracted non-meditation. In a lot of how if you're meditating, you're distracted from non-meditation, aren't you?
So it sounded really pleasant state of mind to be in without having to do, the meditation.
Well, I don't know why I would say that, because I
There
wasn't.
you go.
That's back. When was it?
20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I wasn't meditating then.
No, you said you weren't, but that's how you felt when you were.
Well, if it means a silent mind or a still mind, that can come up any time.
So you just said undistracted, non-meditation. But I heard unobstructed non-meditation, which I like even better.
That's great.
That went away with about meditation. The three wise monkeys.
You want me to bring it so
Might
you
as
can
well,
read it? You can't read it? Okay.
Put the glasses on. You all heard of three wise monkeys, haven't you? Hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. Well, the practice of meditation is represented by the three famous monkeys who cover their eyes, ears and mouth to avoid the phenomenal world. They're trying to shut out everything, in other words. The practice of non-meditation is ceasing to be the seer, hearer or speaker, while eyes and ears and mouth are fulfilling their functions in daily life. So just naturally speaking, seeing.
And we have few of the reminders there on the table if anyone wants the little reminder as bookmark or something. Because we don't want to shut down and go into a samadhi state when we don't see, hear, and we are fed with the spoon, and then wake up 20 years later and just have a gap in the memory. Because that's basically what the state of samadhi appears to be. Like the story, Zen story from Thai tradition about the master who wanted the water, and the student says, okay, I'll go run and then grab some water from the river and come back to you. And he came back and the master was in samadhi. So he spent another 10 years washing him, feeding him, cutting his nails, and then he moved on. Another student came, took the job, another 10 years have passed, and the master woke up from samadhi. Where is the water? Didn't get anything out of it. Just, where's the water? So we want the hearer, speaker, eyes, mouth fulfilling their function, just like Bob does. He is perfectly functional, knowing his own true nature. He can speak, he can hear, he can see, and still being that screen. It's not about becoming something else, something different. It's recognition. It's not a some people call it transformation, but the consciousness doesn't transform. It's only the individual that obscures it. It just dissolves when it's seen for what it is true. And when they say you should kill it, put it under the carpet, murder it, see how much effort you put to murder Santa Claus when you were 7-year-old. Nothing needs to be killed. Santa Claus didn't need to die when you realized that it was a fiction. Fiction doesn't need to die. For the mind it feels like, oh yeah, I've got to die. No, Santa Claus didn't feel anything dying. It didn't exist.
And what's there right now with any one of you? What's there if you ask yourself what's wrong with right now and don't think about it? And even if the thought is paused for a second, or a couple of seconds, but you mightn't be able to pause it any longer. When you can't pause it or not. But what's there then? Do you disappear? Is it the end of you? Do you stop breathing? Does your heart stop beating? Stop feeling, tasting, touching or smelling? And all these things are still going on, and even the thought might arise. But then when the thoughts arise from then, when you've tasted that a little bit, you realise the thought's just like a floater appearing in the mirror. No attachment to it, no fixation to it. Or it's an unfixated awareness, you know. With the seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, it's all going on. Continues going on. The basic screen in which all this, the life which it all appears on, you are that life right now. And what is life?
The thoughts that happen spontaneously, I know they happen spontaneously, but why do you think the majority of them are negative and condemning and judgmental? And like, I know I'm not the thoughts, like I know I'm awareness, like that's just an illusion, but like, why do you think...
You know that for certain?
What's that?
That you're not the thoughts?
Well, I have experiences where I realise I'm not the
when
thought.
you realise it. So what would it be? Wouldn't it be habit pattern? You've habituated into that way of thinking. We all are. So habit pattern.
It's a habitual pattern.
Recognise that habits can be broken.
Because a lot of them are recurring, like a recurring story.
Yeah. Relating to me or something in the past or what happened.
And there, even in psychology, there is a phenomenon that you can actually break certain thought patterns, and you can like create the attitude of gratitude. They say this is a learnable skill. So you can actually, or positive thinkers, you can change your negative thinking to positive thinking. And of course you're not doing it, it's intelligence doing it still, being inspired by the ideas. And people do actually, the psychotherapy comes to help them to build healthy self-esteem. So if there are negative self-sacrificing thoughts, that patterns can be changed. But yeah, they're just habit patterns. Some people have more negative judgmental thoughts, some have less. The people who have more, they will be more unhappy and they will be more likely to go on the spiritual search and wake up. And people who have easy life, they don't really have that much of a struggle or a problem. They live reasonably well, they look around, yeah, I'm doing better than others. They don't really go on a spiritual search. It's usually, I mean, of course there are exemptions, but majority of spiritual seekers are people who are actually suffering because their mental situation, their thought habits are so painful, are so unbearable, that they really, really long for liberation. So it feels unfair that, oh, okay, why was I born in the family in which there was so much of a negativity or whatever, or why did I have so much of the terrible trauma experiences in childhood and other people didn't? Well, it only feels unfair from the human perspective. From the perspective of consciousness, it is all perfectly resolved. Through one pattern, you get more of the heavy, painful thinking, and it can bring you to the spiritual search and into the bliss of waking up from the conceptual image. So it kind of, it's, yeah, but they are learnable skills to change the habit patterns and thinking patterns. Like we can quit smoking cigarettes, we can quit shaming ourselves. And there are programs to do it. And of course there are no entities choosing to follow the programs. That's just a part of functioning.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I fall into that trap many times of setting myself the intention of wanting to change my behaviour patterns and thinking patterns, and then you kind of back in the pattern of who am I really? And I remember one of the things that Bob said to me that really stayed with me is I was sort of halfway through listing the many sort of traumas of my life. And he was like, well, you're still here though, aren't you? I'm like, well, actually, yeah, but I'm kind of still here and turning up and still listing all these events that have happened to me. And I guess what I took from that is no matter all of that, there is in recognising that true nature, that you're just completely untouchable.
Yeah.
In a sense by life, and no matter what happens, the presence remains, and we are all still here, and haven't been touched in our natural state. And that's one of the, I guess, the pointers that Bob gave to me, that I when I find my mind wanting to do something about the way that I am, I sort of come back to that sense of actually notice that no matter what happens, I can't be touched.
That is so important. But it's so important because the fact that we actually change, we can seemingly learn to how to speak another language, or we can learn how to drive the car, or we can learn how to be a better person, or more, we can take up religion or whatever. We can color our hair, but it just really doesn't matter to what we are, to who we are, because if you go back to that basic presence, whether there are traumas in the past, in the story, or there are pleasures in the story, it doesn't really matter. The fact that you can change the color of your hair or change your past, you can get a couple of hypnosis sessions and they will wipe off the memory of trauma and replace it with something else. But it doesn't really matter, because that's only a surface. That's actually rearranging chairs of the Titanic that is going down and sinking. It's it's self-help, self-growth. Yeah, beautiful. What a beautiful dance. I mean, it's as beautiful as creating fantastic art. You create the art on the canvas of your own psyche, but you're not really doing it. And it is irrelevant whether that skills are learned or that paintings are painted. In this, recognizing the true nature, in recognizing non-duality, the content or the chairs on the Titanic, they don't really matter. If
I'm trying to break a habit of a recurring set of thoughts, though, isn't that the mind still working on the mind? Do you know what I mean?
Recognise it as a habit. And do you want to persist in it? Again, did you stop smoking?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What happened when the idea of a cigarette came up?
Yeah, okay. Don't want one.
Yeah, you break the habit.
Apply the same. Apply the same.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Go outside and there's a clear sky out there. Beautiful blue sky, clear, seemingly blue and clear. Look at it. Now, in that, it's empty. A bird might fly across, and a plane or clouds might come into it, and all the time, what happened to that screen? The sky itself, the space.
Nothing.
Nothing, it's not contaminated or touched by any of it. Yeah. So all sorts of things can appear in this. You realise that's the basic screen in which you are, that screen. All the thoughts appear, feelings and emotions appear in that essence that you are. And trying to meditate or get to it or something like that with the mind, how are you going to get to something that's there which all the thoughts that appear in? It couldn't be thoughts, and that couldn't appear without the space. Could that bird fly in space if there was no space? Could the plane, could the clouds be there? Often the plane or the cloud or the bird trying to get to space, it's an impossibility. It's the same with us, anything that's going on in there. Realise that the basic essence that you are, life is constantly there.
So even if the mind, because it is like a little bit mind working on the mind, or trying to resist something or do something, but even if it is mind working on the mind, or even if there is any other theory, that who is the knowing of it? It still happens on that sky or that screen. Even the resistance happens on the screen. The trying to change or correct something happens on the screen. So just seeing the mental activity, even if there is mind correcting or fixing the mind, that's still that movement here, that's still cloud, and you are the sky.
Another great way of looking at addiction. When you put the cigarettes down, yeah, the only way that you could remain smoke-free was to not pick them up again.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the primary addiction prior to the cigarettes, our primary addiction as human beings is our addiction to thought. That's the primary addiction. There's nothing underneath that. And then there's all sorts of offsprings of addictions that seem to happen as a result of that. That's the primary addiction. So what did you do with the cigarettes?
Yes, drop them. Keep dropping.
Yeah. It's just a habit pattern.
Mm.
It's purely a habit pattern that you have absolutely no control over.
Mm.
None.
The more you practice dropping and dropping and dropping,
Just seeing it.
I see. Okay.
It's not even someone having to do anything or drop it. It's just seeing the pattern. And that you're not the doer of it, and that it just happens. And all the suffering comes from that. So, you know, addiction's not a pleasant state for anyone that's been addicted to anything. Yeah, I have. I know Bob has. For anyone that's had addiction problems, it's awful. So, you know, you don't even have to be addicted to a substance. Life can be awful, just being addicted to what goes on in our head. And it really is an addiction.
Yeah.
What will I be if I don't think? I'll lose control. I won't know what to do. How am I going to be if I put down the cigarettes? Oh, it's going to be yuck for a few days. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to feel stress, anxiety. It's just all the story.
So I find my thoughts a bit like a radio on in the background, and you're always waiting for something interesting to come up, and you're scared you might miss something if it does. And that's how I find it at the moment. Chattering away, and then all of a sudden an interesting idea pops up, and you think, oh, lucky I was sort of aware, because that was a good one.
Do you have the same alertness with the sounds and sights and smells?
Possibly, I haven't noted that, but I do notice with some sounds, possibly.
Yeah, just the alertness, the open space, you know, like you are the space.
That's right.
And you're aware of space of thinking, space of hearing, space of seeing, and then something beautiful pops up.
Magpie or something.
Yeah.
Or a siren.
Yeah, because see, very often when whatever thought comes up in like a typical identified state, it takes you for the ride.
Yes.
But if you are actually kind of relaxed to the background, this normal chatter, it doesn't really attract you anymore. It has to be something really attractive to attract you. That's great. Yeah.
Another way of looking at thought too is here in this world, this three-dimensional world that we perceive, that we see, we notice objects, but we don't notice the space that the objects are contained in. We don't even have, it's not even something we consider, not at all, because we're so fixated on the details, the little things that are appearing in it. So when you're turning in and you're aware of thoughts, what are they arising in? What are they arising in? What are they appearing in?
Well, yeah, they're just, it's feeding on itself. It's just, it's coming from it's the image. It's an image on background again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of being caught in the content of what's going on in there, try and see what it's arising in.
Yes, yeah.
Instead of being caught on the objects in this world, notice the space.
Yeah, come from that.
Very good point.
And there's no label in that, noticing the space. There's no labels there. And it's amazing. Like, you take away space and everything disappears. And we take it totally for granted, we don't even notice it.
Bob has something
It's
to
the
say.
same in there when you look back or look in.
Bob has something to say.
Yes, take a movie screen. You look at the movie, you know that everything's appearing on that screen and the screen's not touched, don't you? When you remember the background, there's all these thoughts and that appearance, the same thing. You know, when you just remind yourself that that's there. It couldn't be. These thoughts or feelings or whatever it couldn't appear if it wasn't for that life essence at all.
We get a couple of comments from people who are watching us. One that you Sahaja Samadhi. That's the label that we put on you, Sahaja Samadhi. You know that one, the mind functioning regardless of senses. And another, it's just a word from Raibu Gita that says that, Samadhi. I mentioned Samadhi. Samadhi is actually, there are different types of Samadhi, and Samadhi, when the mind keeps functioning and maintaining its function, is called in the scriptures Sahaja Samadhi. So somebody just commented. And another one, Terry, you got the comment that talking about relaxing, you got to learn how to relax. This is what Peggy says. And Cameron loves how your gestures didn't change in 30 years. Yeah, so you want to add something about how to learn how to relax, maybe? Or
Well, it's just a matter of perception. Like, I feel more relaxed than I've ever felt in my whole life.
did you have to learn it?
No,
You just had to recognize the...
it just came. So the anxiety left, it just came. But what I would like to say is, when we were talking about that space earlier, as you're looking at me now, how many faces are there?
In you?
As you're looking at me, there's just you and I sitting here. As you're looking at me, how many faces are there?
2.
Really?
Well, this is a trick question.
No.
When you think about it, there's 2, but when you experience it...
Oh, in what we're talking about, there's no split. Yeah.
Just in actual, it's not a trick question, just in actuality, how many faces are there?
1.
In your direct experience? Because in my direct experience here, I only see 1. I see 1 face over there. What's here for you? In your direct experience now, like right now, what's here?
1.
1 what?
I'm not sure if I'm following.
If you can, if in your direct experience you can recognise that you cannot see your face.
Okay, yeah.
Can't.
No.
Impossible. You can see mine. Okay. So in your direct experience, given that you understand you can't see your face, what's here? What are you looking out from?
Well, it's 1 face, only 1.
What's here and what are you looking out from?
Yeah.
What do you feel in place of face? Like, what is it there? The space comes out from here. What is it there? Can you feel anything, that you have any form or shape or anything? If you don't think about it.
Right.
Where does the seeing start?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. It comes from...
How far back behind the looking can you get?
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah, I know I'm behind the veil. I can be behind the person. Is that what you mean?
Just in actuality right now. There's no person, no face, no person. There's just seeing.
Mm.
Right now, there's just seeing.
Mm.
Yeah. What's here?
How many eyes?
In you?
No, no, no.
Oh, in you.
Your experience.
In me? Well, there's none.
Yeah.
None, yeah.
Yeah, there's none.
And what's there?
Yeah, what is it?
Space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right, okay. Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah.
Don't run on the assumption you've got a head. Don't run on the assumption you've got a face. In actuality, in your actual, real, true experience, your direct experience right now, there's just seeing.
Yeah, that's not there.
There's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. However, there's a presence.
It's just an awareness. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I got there.
Yeah. It's just another way of pointing. It's another way of pointing that space.
And you can check it as often as you want, many
This is
times
all
throughout
just-
the day.
It's not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
And you'll also discover that residing there, there's no split, because there's no me there.
That's good because that gives it more of a physical
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
not just coming
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, we talk a lot about you know, thoughts that come up. But you know, if a realisation comes that the thoughts just come up, they're just like the traffic noise, you know. They don't mean anything. And you know, we don't sit there and worry about the traffic because it really, it becomes sort of meaningless. It's just a background. And so after a time when you really see that, the thoughts, they're still there, like the traffic noise is there. But you just don't take any notice of them. I mean, they chatter. They just chatter. It doesn't mean an awful lot. What can you think that's really, really, really important to anything? Nothing.
Well said.
Yeah.
That's so true. You know, 100 years ago there wasn't, what, 3.5 billion, 4 billion people on the planet?
Oh, not even that many.
Whatever it was, yeah. And all those people had thoughts and they had lives and everyone thought their life was important and everything was important and every next thought was important. They were gone. How important was it? Like really? How important was it? All that got passed on was life from those people that were here 100 years ago. That life essence got passed on to here. But we run around thinking that, you know, our thoughts are so important and fuck.
We create beautiful stories, but if there's no value, no judgment of any kind of values higher or lower, it's just no judgment whatsoever, no value. It's a beautiful story, but even beautiful is not a value, you know, it's just
Just abide in the space.
moving through.
That's a concept and only a pointer, but abide in the space where it's quiet and still
When
and
everything,
undeniable.
when everything has equal meaning, it has no meaning.
Yeah.
And that word abide is a good one too. Just relax, rest, and settle in.
Any last questions, or we close the meeting because Bob is looking at the clock now?
Tummy time.
last sharing a question, or are you had enough?
Is Cameron still there?
Cameron is still there?
Hey Cam.
Or Cam? Okay, so thank you everyone.
Thanks, guys.
And Merry Christmas.
Christmas.
We have no meeting on Christmas Day, but we have on New Year.
Yes.
There's no